We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
This is Cheapseat Reviews.
Hello, and thank you for listening to Cheapseat Reviews, the podcast that explores the Hollywood film industry for the greater good.
The greater good.
What? You couldn't do it in some like weird 1980s, movie reference voice thing?
I could have, but I didn't.
Oh, okay. There was so many to choose from.
There were.
All right. Well, this is episode 480. And tonight we're talking about, well, not Spaceballs, like I said last week, because about, a day or two after mentioning that, I learned that we have already done Spaceballs. And therefore, so we changed the thing up, and I'll explain all of it in just a second. So tonight we're talking about Explorers, the 1985 movie Explorers, which I keep wanting to put The Explorers, but it's not. It's just Explorers.
Uh-huh.
I am your host, Shawn Allred, and joining me tonight is Andrew. Those kids have better construction skills than I do, Jemison.
I think I may have built something like that as a kid, just, with random junk. Now, I don't know that it could have gone into space, but, but if I had a protective orb around me, then maybe.
Sure, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. And making her triumphant return is Jenn. Again, forgive me. Your middle name is really long, but so just hang in there. Tuck in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Jenn, a typical 80s movie where the only girl in the movie is the main character's object of desire, from the My Streaming Bubble podcast.
Hello. Yes. That is very accurate middle name. Thank you for getting it correct.
Yes. Though there was the alien female, but again, all she's really there to do is to just be the pretty alien girl.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't really do much. And but it's an 80s movie and an 80s kid movie, so therefore there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is what's happened. So once I realized we had already done Spaceballs, I think it was, we record typically on Wednesdays, so I think it was Tuesday night. I sit down to watch Spaceballs. I'm all excited. I love Spaceballs. I can't wait to talk about Spaceballs. And I'm watching the movie, and at some point early in the movie, I can't remember where, somebody drops someone says shit or something like that. I can't remember where. And so my first note was, it's weird watching this movie unedited, because I had seen this movie probably 30 times, but it was always of the TBS VHS cover or recording that I had. And as soon as I typed that, I thought, wait a minute, I've typed that before. Like, I remember typing this. So I go back into my Excel spreadsheet and do the command find, and sure enough, we did Spaceballs, episode 207 or whatever it was. So I message Jenn and say, hey, Jenn, you know how you're coming on the show tomorrow night to record Spaceballs? We've already done it for our show. Have you done it for your show? And she says, no. And I said, great, then let's do it for your show. So Andrew and I joined Jenn on her podcast, which I'm going to let her tell you all about in just a moment, to review Spaceballs. And so after that recording, we said, hey, what do we want to do? And so we scrolled around. And by the way, Andrew found, ladies and gentlemen,
inadvertently found,
430 episodes later, we have discovered that there is a Star Crash 2. By God, we are doing that movie when Sam returns from his sabbatical. So let that be a teaser for, it'll be sometime in the fall. So anyway, with all that having been said, Jenn, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Thank you for being flexible. And also thank you for letting us be on your show, which is, of course, My Stream Bubble. So tell us about your show.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me an episode to release the night we're recording this. Is when I posted the episode, so it's out there to listen to. But yeah, my podcast is called My Streaming Bubble, and it's where I talk about the shows I love with the people I tolerate. And Andrew and Shawn are very tolerable, so they're always welcome back. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just me and someone, we read way too much into a recent binge or movie, and we maybe rant or rave or just fan gush for the whole thing. Um, but that's pretty much it. It's just, yep, it's got to be streamable, preferably. And if not, it's usually available at your local library.
Awesome. Awesome. Go check it out, especially all of the episodes that I'm on. So go do
Yes.
that. All right. So this episode is The Explorers, 1985 Explorers, and I will let Andrew tell you what IMDb has to say about it.
A boy obsessed with 50s sci-fi movies about aliens has a reoccurring dream about a blueprint of some kind, which he draws for his inventor friend. With the help of a third kid, they follow it and build themselves a spaceship. Now what? Is this written by a 12-year-old? All right, thanks,
The third
IMDb.
kid.
God, was that really? And I didn't even look at it. Is that really?
Yeah, that's what it says.
Oh, Jesus.
The
Okay.
third kid.
I
Now
believe you.
what?
A blueprint of some kind. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well then,
Okay.
I mean, that kind of describes what happens.
Yeah, I guess. I guess it does. I guess you're right.
I like the
Um,
now what.
Now what? Yeah. By the way, the trailer for this movie is on because I'm on IMDb right now, and the trailer, the teaser trailer, looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
You have no idea what this movie is about with that teaser trailer, which I like. Honestly, I thought that was kind of cool. So, was this a first for either one of you? This movie?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Okay. So this
No, but
is
it might as well have been a first though, because it's been, gosh, I remember watching this when I was staying with my great aunt for like a week over the summer when I was like 5, 4. I mean, I was young, really young. And even then it was like cable.
Yeah.
It wasn't the actual version.
lots of commercials and things like
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha. What about you, Jen? What kind of memories does this movie conjure up for you?
I mean, nothing specific, but when I sat down, like I saw the cover and I was like, okay, yeah, I kind of remember this movie. And sat down, we watched it as our family movie night because it's kid friendly. And I was like, oh, they'll get a kick out of it. Husband probably doesn't remember it, but it'll be fine. And as the movie is playing, I'm like, I remember every single thing about this movie. I didn't know it until like the scene had passed. I'm like, yep, that's exactly how I remember it. It just all kind of came back to me. So I had seen it enough where it's ingrained into my brain space. But yeah, I don't have any specific memory of sitting down and watching it like with my parents or, you know, anything like that. It's just in there. It's just implanted. Like I was abducted by aliens and they shoved movie information into my brain. It's weird, but it was a joy to revisit because I can't remember the last time I watched. I literally had to have been a child and probably still in the 80s, but this was fun to revisit and my youngest loved it. He even said he's like, "You know, this movie doesn't have any boring parts." He's like, "It's all like action." So I was like, "Oh."
Nice.
And then meanwhile my 13-year-old is just kind of like talking shit through it. So but we all had a good time, but
That's hysterical. Which is funny because I had because your youngest is roughly the same age as my oldest. And my oldest was enjoying it. He was into it. He was there. Whereas my youngest just turned 8 yesterday. She was bored. I mean, she was bored. Now, here's the funny thing. I tell the kids, hey, I have this new movie we're going to do this week for the podcast. We can all watch it together. It's a family-friendly movie. It's good. It's going to be a good time. Oh, what is it? Oh, it's called Explore. It's about these kids who get a dream and they build a spaceship out of a carnival ride. Oh, okay. That sounds really cool. That sounds exciting. All right. We get 30 seconds into the movie. Oh, we've seen this. How have you seen this? And they said, oh, at Yaya and Peepaw's, which are my parents. Like, we saw it at their house. I'm like, why would they watch it there? And they said it was on TV, and so we watched it. But yeah, we've seen it. And my daughter goes, yeah, it's really boring. I'm like, okay. So anyway, but for me, I guess I'm pretty similar in that I haven't seen this movie. I mean, in I don't know, 30 years, I guess. Honestly, I mean, that math makes sense. You know, but the thing is I watched it so many times as a kid that when I rewatched it tonight, it was as if I had watched it last week. I mean, when he sings that song, you know, with the saxophone solo at the end, I guess I need to find out who sings the song. I sang along to it. Like,
Really?
I knew the words. Like, I knew the whole thing. I was humming the saxophone solo. My daughter looks at me and goes, how do you know this song? And I said, it's ingrained in my brain. I can't not know this song. And yeah, I had memories of watching The Black Hole and enjoying The Black Hole, and I was way off. The Black Hole that we watched the other night, not a good
the same
time.
Black Hole.
No, it was the same movie, but whereas this one didn't, I wasn't let down watching it this time. This was fun for me. I really enjoyed it, and I'm also happy that like my son got to watch it, and I was like, every time there was a Star Wars reference, I'd point to the TV and go, "There's a Star Wars reference," and we'll talk about those later. So, and several Star Trek connections too in this movie. So Andrew, what's your 5-word review for this?
Well, I'm gonna actually allow my 11-year-old to give the 5-word review through me because he's already in the bed. But he watched it with me, and he said, "That was really confusing."
All right.
And you know, he had never seen it before, and he came in the room and he said, "Dad, I'm really bored." I said, "Well, I'm about to watch this movie that I watched when I was a kid. Do you want to watch it with me?" And he was like, "What's it about?" And I told him, you know, it's about a kid who basically builds a spaceship. And he said, "Okay, sounds interesting." And then he didn't really say a word through the whole movie until the end. And I said, "What did you think?" And he goes, "It was just really confusing." And I said, "Well, what part was confusing?" And he said, "I mean, how do they get those dreams in his head? And do they all share the same dreams?" And I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess it doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you think of it that way."
No.
But, you know, like I said, this is something I saw when I was very young, and I haven't seen it since. But I do remember the aliens, and I do remember the, you know, basically carnival ride that they take getting into the ship. Because even then I thought, man, it's kind of like a haunted house. It's like a Disney ride, just riding into their ship. But you know, it's a fun little watch, I think, for a kid, possibly back in the 80s. For a kid today, I could see how it might be boring or confusing.
Yeah. There's some moments that don't really hold up, like when they go up on the hill, and he's carrying this giant CPU and his keyboard, and he just sets it down in a tree and just turns it on. Like, what does he plug that thing into? There's no power up there,
Right.
You know?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. Like you can't ask those questions and you can't think too deeply about it. It's like even when they got the tilt-a-whirl piece for the seats and they're like pushing it through this giant tunnel. My husband's like, where in the hell is there a tunnel that big? A cult, like there is no way. And absolutely right. There is like how and where and why, but that's not important. The important thing is they have access to a junkyard and the means to build a spaceship. That's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Can't ask questions. You'll just upset
Yeah.
yourself.
You have to remember, or maybe not remember, but have to be aware that this is a Joe Dante film, which means his movies have rules that don't make sense. Right? This is the guy that directed Gremlins. Right? Like
Mhm.
Gremlins is a fun movie, but you can't think about it. You know, like
Yeah.
Oh no.
don't feed the thing past midnight. When in the time zone that it's in? Like what? Like
Exactly.
how does it know when midnight is? Don't let it get wet. Like what if it sneezes on itself? Does that count? Like there's all kinds of like there's these rules that don't make sense. But it's a Joe Dante film, so whatever. But he also does Explorers. He also does a movie in '87, which I adore, which is called Inner Space.
Yes.
Which-
Oh yeah.
Hoping you were going to say that one.
Is that
Which
the
is
one
funny.
with Martin Short?
Yes,
Oh, I
Mhm.
love that movie.
Martin Short, Dennis Quaid, and Meg Ryan.
Yes.
And
Oh my god.
also, again, Robert Picardo is in that, who I'll mention again later. But like oddly enough, the spaceship that he goes into, Martin Short, kind of looks like this vehicle.
It kind of does, yeah.
It kind of does. I hadn't thought about that until now. He also does The Burbs, which is a ridiculous film.
Mhm.
Gremlins 2, which is hilarious. And then some other things. Small Soldiers, again, a movie where the rules just don't make sense.
Mm-mm.
He takes some time off and then does Looney Tunes Back in Action in 03. And then he's just kind of, some stuff, a couple horror things, an episode of NCIS or CSI New York, because I guess he needed to make some money. Something called The Movie Orgy in 09. Okay.
All right.
Something called Burying the X in 14. And then, again, episode of DC Legends of Tomorrow, an episode of MacGyver, the new MacGyver. He's done 10 episodes of Hawaii Five-0. So he's just kind of chilling. Let's see, he's in pre-production in 3 other, I guess, films right now. Little Shop of Halloween Horrors, The Man with the Kaleidoscope Eyes, and Labyrinthus. No, I'm saying that wrong. It doesn't.
Labyrinthus.
Labyrinthus.
Sure.
It's close
So
enough.
yeah, to your son's point, Andrew, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but you just kind of hand wave at it and go, because it's aliens and they can do things.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think maybe what was so off-putting for him was the fact that these are basically adolescent aliens, right? And they are just being silly, but yet they can send really what's the word I'm looking for?
Intricate, detailed.
Yeah. Dreams into people's heads.
Mhm.
Yeah, and teach them how to build a spaceship to get to them. I mean, the concept, I guess, is a nice concept for a story, but I don't know. I feel like it does kind of. There's not really any moments of peril at all.
No.
It's
Not
they
that
get the instructions to build the ship. They build the ship. I mean, the most danger I feel like they were in the entire movie is when the orb is like out of control in their house in the basement.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Like it's a good thing I didn't go through one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, they get the instructions, they build the ship, they go to space, and then they find out these guys are pretty lame.
Yeah. They're just kids that have been watching too much TV.
Yep.
Yeah. I so I like that part of the movie, honestly. And I guess I haven't done my 5 review or any of us, but like I don't know. So the last note that I wrote, and my daughter is like sitting basically in my lap. And the last note that I wrote was, it makes sense that kids would reach out to kids.
Mhm.
And she says, why does that make sense? I said, think about it. If it were adult beings that wanted to make contact with humans, they would reach out to adults because you want to try to connect with people your own age, right? But the fact that kids got the message is because they were kids sending the message. Oh yeah, that does kind of make a lot of sense. So like, okay, she might just be saying that because daddy is saying something and she just wants to make me feel good. But it storytelling wise, I got the logic that they're going for here. It's like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. And there's also something kind of, I don't know, almost realistic in a movie about ridiculous aliens and 0 point energy coming from a Mac 2E and things like that. But like, building a circuit board that creates oxygen, whatever. Right? Ignore the science. In a movie about all of that, there's something kind of realistic about the idea that when they go and meet the aliens, they're just disappointed. They're just utterly disappointed. It's like, that feels real. I don't know why, but that just feels real. It's just, he has this dream and he's built it up. He's expecting it to be Star Trek and Star Wars and, Battlestar Galactica. Like, he's expecting all this stuff, but instead it's reruns of
everything.
The Three Stooges and yeah. So it's funny. I don't know. I like. Jen, what's your 5-word review?
Well, I have 2. So my first one that I came up with was silly kids sci-fi space flick. Because that's really it's silly. Don't think too much about it. Because, like you said, don't think about the science. It's not really there. And then the other one that I wrote was spaceship for peeping because boys.
Yes.
Like, that's like the first thing they do.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
I mean, in the back of my mind, I was also trying to think, how old are these kids again? Because regardless of how old they are, I feel like they're in the movie, at least they're a little too young to be thinking about some of this stuff, in my opinion. But that's just just me.
That's the 80s for you. I don't know how else to try and explain it.
Well, they're middle schoolers,
Yeah.
right? They're junior high, right? So I
I
mean,
guess
8th
so.
grade, you're thinking about girls in 7th and 8th
Yeah.
grade. I mean,
Yeah. Well, maybe I was just more sheltered than most people.
And
Maybe at the end of 8th grade is kind of when I realized that I was even interested.
And maybe not so like as bold to peep on your crush.
Right.
So
yeah.
seems like a theme throughout the 80s, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're not wrong.
But yeah.
And I will say this: the movie introduces a couple of plot points, and then we never like really flesh them out, which kind of annoys me. But also, I did read a piece of trivia that at one point the full edit of the movie was 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Why?
Like they filmed and did an edited version that was 3 hours and 15 minutes, and then they cut it down to an hour and 40.
Smart.
So it does make me feel like there are a lot of plot points that they introduced and got put on the cutting room floor. Like the bullies. They don't really ever have any comeuppance. Usually in 80s movies, when you're introducing bullies, they have some kind of comeuppance.
Yeah.
Somewhere. But they don't.
And you just think you're going to see it at the drive-in, right?
Yeah.
But you don't.
I guess. Yeah, but you don't. They just the ship just crashes through it. but there's nothing to that. And then the helicopter pilot, who's like all freaked out, he's talking to somebody on the phone. I guess it's the other guy. Which, by the way, I love the idea that in Maryland they just have sheriffs that just ride around in helicopters, just patrolling
Just
the
all
sky
day.
all day. I mean, the fact that helicopter, like we saw it at night, it lands in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and then he just immediately takes back off. I'm like, oh,
Oh,
apparently those things also run on
Unlimited
zero fuel, like the spaceship.
That's what my husband said. He's like, no way. Like those kind of moments that you're just like, just shut up and go with it.
Yeah, just stop. It's fine. But like, so but we see him on the phone later saying, I got these dreams I can't get. I had dreams like this as a kid, and I'm having them now. So it's like, oh, these aliens reached out to him as a kid because he's also, kind of special in that he was open to the idea of aliens, but didn't have the resources, technology, whatever, to do that when he was a kid. So then in the end, like when the ship's taking off and he just kind of has a smile and says, go get him, or whatever he says. But I feel like there should be more there. I don't know. I feel like
I think he could have been included in that final dream.
Yeah.
As setting up the potential sequel. As we're all gonna go now.
Yeah.
But which, speaking of that final dream, that was the most awkward moment for my son, because when he and the girl kiss in midair, he looks at me and he goes, I guess they're dating now? Like, he said, that was a little soon, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Yeah, that one got a reaction out of the family too, because we're just like, what? That part I kind of forgot, but I was like, well, I don't know. I think it's the girl. It's the 80s. I don't know what else to say. It was 85. My husband's like, it was a magical time. I don't know. And because their kids were just like, what? Like, and the 10-year-old, he doesn't like to see any kind of like affection, kissing or hugging, couples. So he always like holds his hand up just enough to block it. And the 13-year-old's just kind of like, really? I was like, yeah. So, but I feel like that just happens a lot, or happened a lot.
Yeah.
Just happily ever after.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. It is fun. It is like, hey, when you found me outside your house on the ground, there's almost this moment where she like, wait a minute, you flew in a spaceship and you were outside my bedroom. Were like you testing that out at my bedroom? Like their relationship is starting off in a pretty perilous position right now. But it's like you said, it's the 80s.
Yeah.
It's really funny. Okay, I have to do this. I'm sorry. Andrew, you missed out on Bluey because your boys are too old.
Right.
Jen, I don't know
I
if
do
you
know
ever, I don't know if you got to experience Bluey or not, but
nope.
But you know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an episode where the dad is telling a story about his childhood, and the dad is basically like our age, right? He is a child of the 80s and 90s. So he's telling this story and he says something and the kids go, what? You could do that? And he goes, hey, it was the 80s. It was a different time. Like there's multiple times in his storytelling where he's like, you can't do that. And he goes, it was the 80s. And it's just so funny. So like, because my kids are watching that going, is that really? Like for real? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, really? And I said, like we watched, I can't remember, we also watched, we watched another older movie with had kids, and I can't remember, but my kids were like, gosh, these kids are out at night a lot. And I said, yes, that's how it was. I said, there literally were times growing up where I wouldn't see my parents for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And I would just a phone call, just, hey, I'm at Steven's house for the next day. Okay. Like that was the end of it. Like, yeah, it's just funny.
They had whole PSAs about it's 10 o'clock at night. Do you know where your kids are?
Do you know where your kids are? Just to remind you parents that they had children.
That thought today in 2024 is just asinine. Why wouldn't I know where my kids are at 10
Right?
p.m.? But like back then, it was just like, yeah, it's fine. I don't know.
I don't know where they are.
Why,
We
why
would
are
play
they worried?
flashlight tag until
Yeah.
midnight,
Yeah.
or we would be shooting bottle rockets off in the backyard at each other,
Oh,
and
Stephen,
just all kinds of stuff.
Stephen, who's been on the show with me, we invented a game. So in his backyard, when I first met him, he had a lot of woods behind him. So he had this really awesome tree house that his dad had built. Then they moved to a brand new neighborhood. So there are no trees. Well, he wanted a tree house. So his dad built him basically a tree house, just a fort on stilts. It was about 10 feet off the ground. And it was a tree house, but there was no tree. So that was the base, right? That's what we call our base. Well, we both had BB guns, right? Because we're children that you can have BB guns. So we played a game where the guy in the tower got the BB gun with the scope, and the guy on the ground got the pistol BB gun. And the goal was, midnight, to see how close I can get and shoot the pistol and hit a target near where you were. And if you saw me on the ground, you would shoot the rifle BB gun and try to get as close as you could without hitting me to let me know that you saw me. Like, we were shooting BB guns at each other.
Oh yeah,
At midnight.
At midnight.
midnight.
On a Tuesday.
On a Tuesday. On a school night.
Yeah,
Right.
maybe not a school night, but definitely definitely during the summer. So yeah, it's just
Well, and it's like at one point, so in the beginning, when Ben and Darren first meet and everything, and Darren saves him from the bully, and then Darren takes off on his little, motorbike or whatever, and Ben ends up catching up to him, and our kids are like, there's no way he would have caught up to him. I'm like, dude, it was the 80s. Every day was leg day. You could ride your bike.
Yeah.
Like, that was the only mode of transportation, only way to get around. So of course he can. And they're like, oh, I guess. I'm like, they were outside. We were outside.
My kids thought it was cool that an eighth grader's riding around on a dirt bike to school anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's just,
What is that about?
he rode a dirt bike to school, and I said,
Mhm.
and he's not wearing a helmet.
Oh no, you did not wear a helmet in the 80s. You were not cool if you wore a helmet. You were not cool if you're all about safety.
Oh,
Yeah.
The only time I wore pads was on my rollerblades, and even then I didn't wear the helmet. I would wear the knee, elbow, and and wrist guards. But that was about it. Hell, because we would play street hockey on the rollerblades, and those were the only pads we had. We wouldn't wear helmets. The helmets were for sissies. Like, he didn't wear a helmet. Oh my
God.
It was a time. Hold on, I have to play it because I haven't played it in a while.
I was
It
going to
was
say
a different time.
Yeah, thanks, Chad.
Yeah. we have a clip for that.
Yeah, we have a clip just for that.
It was a different time.
That's right, Chad. I appreciate that. Chad, a guy who hasn't been on our show in 300 episodes, but he still makes his mark.
God rest his soul.
God rest his soul. He's not dead. I'm teasing. We tease. He's not. He's fine. He actually lives not that far from where I am. So some of my show notes that I have for this movie is yes. Excuse me. So my first note is 80s bullies.
Mhm.
I'm not sure why we have to have a movie in the 80s without we have to have some kind of bully, I guess.
Oh yeah.
The boys attend Chuck M. Jones Junior High School. The school is named after animator Chuck Jones.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of a cool thing.
That was going to be one of my questions if we were doing a game today, but I figured it was going to be an important part of the trivia anyway. So
yeah. I did write down that it was strange that he lives in Maryland, but has a Huntsville, Alabama poster in his bedroom.
Well, everything in his bedroom was basically about Space Camp, which is in Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh, that's why.
Oh, okay.
I didn't make that connection. I would have figured it would, been like not Cape Canaveral. Where did they launch the shuttle? Cape.
Yeah, Cape Canaveral.
Yeah, okay. I couldn't remember. Also, I did right. You can't run a PC on a 9-volt battery. I love that stuff. Oh man. Also, gotta love the sled. Did you see the Rosebud sled from Citizen Kane?
I didn't see that. Where was that?
I didn't see it, but I did read that it was
In the
in
junkyard?
one of the shots.
In
Yeah.
the junkyard when he's walking around. It's right after he puts on the mask and pretends to be Darth Vader. He kind of comes around a corner and there's Rosebud right there. But we did get a really sweet building the ship montage.
Mm-hmm.
Really sweet one. I enjoyed that. Even my son was like, "This is a cool montage." I'm like, "Yeah, these kids are building stuff." And then at one point, when the Darren is assembling the frame that the TV monitor would go to be the main windshield, he's putting a bolt through. He's drilled the hole and he's putting a bolt through to put the nut on the end. But all Declan sees is him putting in this metal thing and smacking it with his hand. And my son goes, "He's so strong, he uses his hand as a hammer." Said, no. That wasn't a hammer and nail. That was a bolt. That's not the same thing. He's like, "Oh."
Nah, 80s kids were built different.
Yeah. Well, that is true, but I don't think I could hammer a nail in with my hand. I mean, maybe into drywall, but certainly not through a 2x4.
It would still not be comfortable.
No. I would that nail would still be in my hand. The sheriff guy, that when he confronts the kid, I don't understand why he didn't say, "Hey, I am Sheriff Jack."
Right.
It's just your jacket.
Yeah.
Like he's just a creepy guy that shows up and confronts him.
Mhm.
It's weird.
I wondered about that because it was very odd.
Yeah.
And off-putting.
Yeah.
And I am glad that even though it would have been nice to get a little bit more of a resolution with that guy, I'm glad that his part basically ended with like, yeah, go get him, like on a positive note, and him kind of supporting the kids or whatever, instead of being like creepy weirdo trying to take them down and prove that aliens are evil or something like that. So that was nice.
I agree. I totally agree. Last couple notes here is they go to the alien ship and they land in the place and then they get disinfected and then they have to go through like this ridiculous, maze and most extreme elimination challenge course to find them. And I thought, why wouldn't they make it easy for the kids to find them?
Mhm.
Like, why isn't there a hallway from where I don't understand why they had to go through the plumbing of the ship.
Well, it's they stole Dad's ship. They snuck it out, so it's not like it's theirs. Maybe, I don't know, they're just like, let's take the ship and sneak out and try and contact humans. Maybe that was the only one they could steal.
No, I understand. No, I understand that, but it's like,
or maybe they didn't fully know how to use it.
Maybe,
but I'm still there is no analogy that works on Earth. I'm saying, like, if like if we stole an aircraft carrier and then had somebody land on it, like there's only so many places you can go. It seems to your point, because you mentioned that there's no peril. We had to manufacture some peril for the kids, like, because if you're watching the movie for the first time, you don't know that the kids are always safe. Like the kids are never in danger.
That's true.
But we have to have Darren climbing on this thing that's moving, and he's climbing on this other thing and jumping off the whatever, and like and we do get to see he sits down in some machine where they injected images into his head. So I guess we saw the technology of them doing that technology that they have where they can put dreams in their head. Though, which was weird because one of the shots that he got in his head was of Ben and the girl. So he got like a little future moment there, which is interesting.
And
Again,
the cop. There was a real quick shot of him too. So I kind of was thinking, oh, maybe he's gonna come back like at the end, and then no.
yeah.
Nope.
So I think probably again plot stuff that got left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, I
But-
could see that.
Yeah. And that's it. That's like all my notes I have for the movie. Other than just some fun trivia, but like, yeah, I don't know. This movie has a special place in my heart, and I think the movie kind of holds up. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I Aside from the peeping, absolutely. I think this movie holds up for for 2024. It's just it's a silly kids space adventure. They build a spaceship, they go into space. And there's nothing deeper than that. And I
Yeah.
think, like I said, kids of a certain age, I think are gonna dig it. I watched it, and it's like I got the DVD from the library, so it's all like digitally remastered and everything. So like it looks really good for being as old as it is. So yeah, no, I think it absolutely holds up.
The only thing that I have a problem with, as far as if it holds up or not, is all of the references that the aliens make, as far as the
yeah.
TV references, are very outdated for today's audience. The
Yeah.
only one that my son even remotely knew was the Bugs Bunny
Yep.
reference.
Yeah.
And other than that, he was lost. He didn't know what any of the other things were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
That's a good point.
definitely a movie of its time. And we made that comment on your episode, Jen, when we did
Mhm.
Spaceballs, where when you make a movie that has cultural tie-ins to the moment, it dates the movie. Which is fine.
Mhm.
By the way, the song I found out was Little Richard. That song, the Rock and Roll's Here to Stay. It's by Little
Oh.
Richard.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, so this movie does make several Star Wars references, which I think is kind of fun, right? We've got him playing as the lightsaber with the mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Wait, I just realized, did I do my 5-word review? I don't think I did.
No,
I don't
I
think
don't
you
think
did.
I
so.
don't think I did. Mine was nostalgia-filled adventure comfort film. Because this movie
Okay.
just kind of made me, it was like comfort food for me.
Warm and fuzzy.
yeah.
Yeah, it really did. Again, when that song came on, seriously, I was singing along. And I was having a good time with it. So, but I also then realized how much the alien scene annoyed me, because it's so frantic.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's almost like if the girl wasn't there to like say things calmly, or if Wolfgang wasn't there to say, that we have germs and whatever, because like everything that Watt did was like a punchline. He was always just delivering punchlines. It's almost exhausting as a 40-year-old watching it, going, okay, can you give me just a little bit of plot exposition? Like just bring it down a little bit, because you're kind of tiring me out.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I don't remember what I was going to say, but actually, I've completely lost my train of thought. That's okay. I will say this about. All right, so here's what I do. Oh yeah, Star Wars references. So the movie they go see at the movie theaters, of course, is called Star Killer, which is another Star Wars reference, because that was what Luke Skywalker's original name was Star Killer, which is why in the 7th movie it's called Star Killer Base. It's a nod to that. So I thought that was kind of fun. But yeah, there's that. And then of course I have to do the Star Trek connections, guys. I mean, the fact that he actually says in the movie, going where no man has gone before, he doesn't get any more on the nose than that, which of course he can say that because it's a Paramount Productions. Paramount owns the rights to Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
But then you got Robert Picardo, who is the guy that plays Star Killer in that terrible B movie that they're watching. He also is the body and a little bit of the voice of Watt, and the body actor of the dad alien. But Frank Welker did the voice for the dad alien.
Huh.
But Robert Picardo is the Doctor from Star Trek Voyager. So how weird is that?
Mhm.
That we have two movies back to back from the 80s that have actors that are in Voyager.
Mhm.
I just
I
think
love
that's
it.
I love it too. I think it's hysterical. But he's not our only Star Trek connection. Jerry Goldsmith, that did the film score for this movie,
Right.
did the motion picture and the TNG theme and the Voyager theme. And I want to ask you guys, how do we feel about the theme of this movie, the score?
I really enjoyed the music. I mean, honestly, as I was sitting there thinking, all right, this movie's kind of cheesy for 40-year-old Andrew. But the music, I like it.
Mhm.
It kept me
No,
in there.
I agree. I thought the music did a really great job really adding to each scene and each moment. And there was a couple of times where I'm like, wow, this is a really good score. And I almost never do that. Like I'll notice it, but I never make like a mental note. But there were a couple of times where I'm like, I feel like the music is really helping to make this scene and really make the moment. And yes, that's, the purpose and the point and everything. But for some reason, I was like, this is legit. It wasn't like childish or corny and very like kid oriented or silly. It was like I said, it was legit. So I was
Yeah.
all for it.
The only thing that I was a little bummed out on is that it's not a full orchestra. It's synth. It's all synth.
Mm.
And Goldsmith was known at this time period to do that. He
Yeah.
was, I mean, he was overruled by the director for Star Trek because he wanted to do that kind of theme for Star Trek. And can't think of the name of the director for Star Trek. The guy that directed The Sound of Music. Gosh dang it, I can't remember his name. Anyway, he was like, no, there will be an orchestra. Like you will have an orchestra. There's some back and forth there, but no, I love the score. I think it really holds up. I think it's really good, and I also like that. I mean, it's a little repetitive, but they did that a lot in the
Yeah.
80s. You get a nice theme and then you use it again and again and again. But I also like that it was used appropriately, right? Like obviously we get it in the intro, but then we get it again when they start making things happen, and we get it really, a big chunk of it during the montage where we get like the theme and some variations of it, and then we go back to it. And there's a couple of like hero moments where like when the kid puts on the mask or like when they first see the ship, like you get the hint of the hero moment. I really liked it. I thought it was really well done. And I'm glad, Jen, because you said you're not normally into the music. Andrew being a band director and myself a music major also, like the film scores to us matter so much.
Greatly. Yeah.
In fact, Andrew, you'll appreciate this. Sam sent me a text today for Battle Beyond the Stars because he didn't give us a score for the movie. He did message that a little 5-word review on it. He hated it. So he wrote, by the way, my score for Battle Beyond the Stars is a 1.85, and it's only because of the music.
Only because of the music.
Yeah. So
that it was that high, or the music?
I think it was that high. I think if it wasn't for James Horner's score, it would have been like a 0.
Yeah.
So but like to us, Jen, like that's how much the music, I mean, because even Battle Beyond the Stars, which is objectively a bad movie, but the James Horner score is so good. And if you like the movie Star Trek The Wrath of Khan, then when you listen to Battle Beyond the Stars, you're like, oh, I see where James is going. Like because that was his first film, Battle Beyond the Stars. His next film is Wrath of Khan. Like he was able to get Wrath of Khan because of that movie. So yeah. So it's like I'm not suggesting you should ever watch Battle Beyond the Stars. I mean, unless you like bad 80s sci-fi.
It can be a lot of fun, yes.
It can be fun if you go. I think our problem is that we went into it for the podcast not knowing what it is. It's not meant to be great. It's kind of meant to be low budget. The director of it That's what he does. It's I forgot the name of the director for that too. But that's what he's known for, is these low budget deals. So now I gotta find it. I can't remember his name. Roger Corman. You know, he's kind of known for these low budget kind of things, right? Anyway, I don't really have any much else to say about this movie. I really don't. And again, I don't have any clips, which is a bummer, but it's just the way the timing worked out. I just don't have. We didn't have time for clips, so
Yeah,
I just
that's all
didn't have
right.
them. Yeah, I know. Here's one other piece of trivia I'll read before we move on to our last little kind of end of episode stuff. The actual computer that was used to make the screen display for Wolfgang's computer was not an Apple IIc. It was an SGI Iris 1400 workstation that cost $35,000.
Oh my gosh.
Damn.
It contained a 73 megabyte hard drive. 73 megabytes, guys. My watch has more than that. With 1.5 megabytes of memory, it weighed 130 pounds and required a custom portable wooden crate to house it on set. The movie needed a program written in C language that could redraw a 3D wireframe scene in real time, a feat not possible before CGI produced this specialized hardware. The movement of the energy sphere on screen was controlled by a mouse and happened in real time for each scene and take in response to the director's instructions. The refresh rate of the monitor was modified to synchronize with the motion picture camera to eliminate flicker by tapping into one of the circuit boards. The workstation used a Unix-based operating system, which I wish Sam was here to learn that it was the Unix system.
Yeah. Wow.
So, I thought that was really fascinating that it took a computer that powerful to just do the vector graphics and the little sphere and stuff like that. That was very fun. So I don't know. There's just something very fun for me about that age of movie making with computer animation. Like when they're flying over the circuit board, like that's all computer animated. And I don't know. I really like it. I think it's
very Tron-esque.
It is Tron. It's also I don't know. It's just like these people in the industry are making a new industry. You know, like in real time. You know, like going back to the Wrath of Khan. In Wrath of Khan, when they show the little Genesis PowerPoint presentation, right? When they show the Genesis effect, that whole scene is CGI. Industrial Light and Magic created that scene with the computers, this computer farm that they had, but which would later become Pixar, by the way.
Yeah.
But that company that did that, like that scene was the first in film history that was 100% everything in the shot was computer animated. And then later you would get movies like The Last Starfighter, where all of the space battles are computer animated and things like that. So it's just really cool. Like we're watching the industry grow. And then just less than a decade later, you get Jurassic Park. You know, like that's how much it grew from this movie, where it takes a massive machine that weighs 130 pounds to make the little sphere move around on screen to what's the math? 8 years later, we have real looking dinosaurs on screen. You know, it's fascinating.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. Sorry, I could geek out about that stuff for
Well, there's a couple of things that I jotted because I didn't take a lot of notes because I was really kind of into it. And when the movie finished, I realized, thinking that Andrew was going to do his trivia, I was like, I didn't pay attention to anything. I was like, oh no. So I'm glad we're not doing that tonight. But there was the one line, there's like there's the one line that Darren says at the beginning about how his dad taught him how to run. And he says, he taught me how to run. He can't catch me anymore. And I was like, I turned to my husband. I was like, damn, that kid was getting his ass beat. That's how he learned
Yeah.
how to run
Yeah.
from his dad. And so I just thought it was interesting that, like, with these three boys, we have kind of like your average kid in Ben with Ethan Hawke, and then River Phoenix is like the boy genius, and then Darren's like the rough and tough, not a great home life kind of kid, shows up with the beer so they can christen the spaceship and everything. And I also loved how they all like took a big old swig of beer and just seemed like it was fine.
It was fine.
They've
Nobody had
done
a
that
problem with it.
before. Yeah, it was the 80s. That's it's like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I swiped at one of my dad's beers. It's pretty good. Yeah, you're right. Ethan Hawke takes the big swig and go, there's no face. There's no nothing. It's just like, this
No
is beer.
reaction.
Fine. I'm like,
Yep.
I can't do that now, without making a face.
Oh, see, 80s kids are just
And
different.
to your point, Jen, that's how Darren knew at the end of the movie. He goes, that's their father, because he's watched his dad yell at him.
He knew
in
that.
the
He knew
scene.
that body language. Yep.
Yeah, he's like,
So it's
that's
like
a pissed off dad.
Mhm.
yeah. And I don't know that I ever, I don't recall ever picking up on that as a child. I do remember as a child with the big reveal that Meek and Walker, whatever, were the kids. I was like, what? They're just kids? Aliens have parents too?
Yeah.
So I do remember that as being like, whoa. Another couple of things was I hope they didn't actually give the dog gum. It's the 80s, so it's possible. And then
Yeah.
the headline of one of the newspaper that I
Yes.
think Wolfgang's dad was reading said, "Council vetoes library fund," and I was like, typical.
Yeah.
And then yeah, just the exploring of the ship with all the smoke and poofiness. It kind of it gave me a little bit of like Killer Clowns from Outer Space vibes, and I think that was just
Mhm.
the excessive smoke machine in the 80s. Maybe it was the same set, because I could have sworn Wolfgang's house was maybe the same house from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
It
Similar
did look
layout.
similar. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I thought that too.
It's like, I hope I'm not losing my mind. Oh, and then my husband at one point looks at me and goes, "Is Wolfgang's dad a Nazi?" I was like, oh my God. He's like, scientist, German, eating baklava, like the food of their enemies. I was like, oh my God.
He's
So,
also
that's it.
our other Star Trek connection too.
Yes.
Mhm.
James
So-
Cromwell. Yeah, which is funny because he came on set and he's walking around. I looked over at Sarah and I'm like, he's one of my wife, and I said he's one of the Star Trek connections, and she just rolls her eyes. And then about 5 minutes later, she sees him again on set again, and goes, "Wait a minute, that's the guy from iRobot." I'm like, "Yeah." She's, "Oh, okay, yeah." So it's just like that's how she. But I had to pause the movie and explain to my kids what a bug bomb was, because he keeps
Aw.
asking about the bug bomb, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"You guys don't know what that is, do you?" And they said no, and I'm like, "I think that stopped sometime in the '90s, because I mean, like, other than Andrew, when we had to fumigate our apartment because Alicia brought fleas into the condo or into the
Yeah.
apartment. Were you living with us then, or was that before? you?
That is right when I moved in, because
Yeah.
no one told me. I got the room, by the way, that was
Yeah.
infested with fleas.
Oh, it was
Uh,
awful.
And
No.
and it was kind of lightly brushed over the fact that well, there might be a flea or two, like
Yeah.
then I go in the room and it's like I have bugs crawling on me as I sleep. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it was awful. But
It was
Yeah.
awful.
But like I had to explain to them, what a bug bomb was. That I remember doing this in the 80s and 90s with my parents. We cover everything with sheets and you cover up the furniture and all the electronics, and you set up this can like a grenade, and you leave the house for 2 days because it's going to kill everything.
Yeah.
And then you can't go
They
back
still
in the
make
house.
those. And I've
Do
used them. Oh yeah. At the last house that I lived in, my wife has this deathly fear of spiders, and so we opened the crawl space under the house, which it's a crawl space. You're gonna expect to have spiders there. She was like, bomb it.
Pulls her
So I went and found some
throw it in
bug
there.
bombs, and I did. Honestly, it was like throwing a grenade, because I tossed it under the house, and there it was.
I'm sorry, Jen. I interrupted you. You had a couple other things you wanted to.
No, that was pretty much it. When I started the movie and the Paramount logo comes up, the 10-year-old's like, "What, Paramount?" He's like, "Oh, they make good stuff. Let's go." He got all excited. So I was like, that is adorable.
That's hysterical that a production company got a let's go.
Yeah. Well, I blame the streaming service, but either way.
Yeah. Hey, it's fine. That's just great. Because I don't think my son would have ever said something like that, but that's funny. But I mean, he and I have watched all of the TOS movies, the 6 original movies. We've watched all those together, and I'm forcing. He's like, when are we gonna watch the next movies? I'm like, you're gonna have to watch some of the Next Generation with me before we can watch Generations, because it won't make sense.
Mhm.
And he's like, but that's how you did it. I'm like, you're right. I watched the movie before I watched TNG, and I kind of wish I hadn't. So we're going to watch some of it together. Not all of it, because there's a lot of bad TNG episodes. But we'll watch some of it. So anyway, that's cool. All right. Anything else? Anything else you need to say?
The last thing I had, the only note that I really took in the movie was I found it really odd after the dad alien kicks the kids out and they go back to Earth. He has to put the ship in reverse and back up before he can go forward in space.
Yeah.
Well, that's a typical dad thing. Just
Yeah.
you just wanted to use the backup camera.
Did you notice that it had backup lights? Like there literally were
yeah.
circles for white backup
Yeah.
lights, and then you hear the gears shifting and grinding, and then it goes forward. Yeah, these are jokes, right? I mean, like there's during one of the test scenes, right, when the ship comes down into the creek bed and stops, it makes like a boing sound, like very cartoon.
Mhm.
And then
couple of Looney Tune references I read.
Oh my gosh, yeah, like when the bubble turns off at the end. Well, what's holding us up in the air? Like they have time to scream before they
Wile E.
fall.
Coyote.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was very much like that, and it's interesting because I don't think I understood it at the time, but I think what happened was it felt like the aliens, when they sent them back, made it so that the computer program would stop working. Like maybe the dad somehow broke it so that the ship would crash in water and they wouldn't be allowed to go back. And then the kids somehow, I guess, stole the car again and sent them the new dream or something. I don't know, but it does seem weird that one force would break the ship on purpose and then another force would say, no, you get to come back. So I don't know.
Defiant children.
But I would be open, honestly, I would be open to an Explorers 2 and it being like
Boogaloo,
like and it would be like the kids of these dudes, right? Like their dads, and they're like they start having the dream and they have to build a thing, but like make the aliens like less comical, I guess. I don't know, but there's
I like that.
Or keep them comical and have like that alpha generation just kind of ripping on them. Like, why do you look like that? Why do you look slimy?
Yeah. But like you would have to have they would, oh, that's the interesting. Would Watt and the girl still be children? Like, do they age differently? That's an interesting thing. It's been 45 Earth years since you guys, since we saw your dads or something like that. And I don't know. I'd be up for it. I don't know if anybody else was, Paramount. Can we get on this?
Yeah, Ethan Hawke could definitely be in this.
Well, he could. I mean, Ethan Hawke's still an actor. I mean, he could still be. I don't know about the other dude. Obviously, River Phoenix has passed away, but
right,
the third kid, like whatever he's doing. So, All right. That's it. That's all I have for that. So we're gonna move on to.
Now for some more bad news. Ready?
Again, we've already done trivia and there's no game. So I'm actually just going to skip on to the next clip. Right. Now, this is where we give this movie a score from 0 to 10. With, I think, if Sam were here for Battle Beyond the Stars, I think he would have given that movie a 0. But, which is weird. I have a score for him for that week for Battle Beyond the Stars. I don't know. Anyway, Andrew, what do you give this movie?
Well, it's parked on IMDb at a 6.4. I don't know that I can go that high with today's glasses on, because it does have a few issues, but it's a fun little movie. It's okay. It's not something that I'm gonna rush out to watch again. But if one of my kids said, "Hey, let's watch it," I'd say, "Let's give it a month, and then maybe." So I'm gonna put it at a 5.6 for me.
Okay. Jen?
Well, I went ahead and gave this 7 on IMDb. A lot of it is the nostalgia and a bit of my kids enjoyed it. Although at the end, the 13-year-old was like, "Is that it?" So the now what in the IMDb synopsis kind of makes sense to me that a 13-year-old might have written it. But it's a cute, fun, silly little movie about building a spaceship, child geniuses, whatnot. So I thought it holds up. It's still entertaining. It's something you can totally shut the brain off and just don't think too much about it and just have a good time. So 7.
All right. I like that. I'm actually not going to go as high, but I do really like the movie. And again, it's just a nostalgia thing for me. And honestly, if the aliens were just a little bit less ridiculous, I would probably like this more. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 6.5. Give it a 6.5. And because this movie obviously has a fondness in my heart.
Yeah.
And I'm also glad that we got to watch something this month that for our show that we kind of enjoyed, because it's been kind of a rough month, Andrew. Don't you agree?
Yeah, it's been a little rough.
Yeah, when I picked this category, or you picked this category, or
Sam picked the category.
Sam picked this category. I think when I was looking for movies to do, I thought that some of these would be like those gems that we get every now and then. Like, I didn't have high hopes for Rebel Moon, but I kind of thought Battle Beyond the Stars would be a lot of fun and ridiculous. And I misremembered The Black Hole completely. And obviously Spaceballs was, again, we have already done that. So I'm just glad that this movie ranks in the 6 area, because our last movie was 3.2, 2.2, and 3.8.
Ouch.
So, yes. Yes. But that's it. That's it. That's our show. Jen, before I tell people what we're watching next week, and God, will this month just end? Please tell us once again where your show, where we can find it, and all the good stuff.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed talking about this movie with you guys, and I'm glad you got to end it on a happier, more enjoyable movie note, and I get to be a part of that. But yeah, your listeners can find my podcast, My Streaming Bubble, on podcast player near you. You can follow me on Twitter at Streaming Bubble, No My and That, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads as My Streaming Bubble.
Awesome. Do all of those things. Go support Jen, because she's awesome.
Yeah.
Next week, we're ending the movie month of Star Wars adjacent movies with Rebel Moon 2. We're going to see how this thing ends. Andrew, did you already watch it, or is that Sam? I can't remember.
I have not seen the second one yet.
Okay, so that was Sam that went ahead and watched it. And I remember him saying not nice words. about it. I think which is weird because I've heard other people say that they like the second one better than the first. I don't know, but I mean, Jen, we gave the first one a 3.89 between the three of
Ouch.
us.
Mhm.
My brother-in-law raved about it. He
Really?
loved it. Oh, he's like, oh, it's fantastic. I'm like, okay, well, if you're excited about it, I'm interested to see. Couldn't disagree more. But, he and I also, it's been a long time since he and I agreed on a movie, so we'll just go about that. Anyway, that's it. That's going to do it. So until next week, go to our website, cheapseatreviews.libsyn.com. There you can find links to all of our social medias and things. Follow us, leave us a review on iTunes and Spotify and all that stuff. Cheapseat Reviews, youtube.com/Cheapseat Reviews. There you can watch us make fools of ourselves. Though Cheerwine is not an official sponsor of this podcast, they should be. Because it is my drink of choice as I'm drinking it right now. Jen, you probably have no idea what Cheerwine is, but that's okay.
Nope.
It's a local drink. It's a soft drink. It's a cherry delicious drink. It's
It's
not
Dr.
like a
Pepper adjacent. Sorry.
Okay.
Words are hard right now.
yeah.
I understand.
It's not like a cherry Coke. It's, for a lack of a better word, it's more syrupy than a cherry Coke. It's very sugary, but it's I also
sounds like it.
Yeah, like cherry Coke has like a bite. Coke has a little bit of a bite to it. This is very smooth. And I'm wearing this shirt because last weekend was the Cheerwine Festival here in North Carolina, in a little town north of us called Salisbury, and they have a Cheerwine Festival. So we went up and I spent an obscene amount of money at the festival supporting my favorite soft drink. So I don't drink beer. I don't drink alcohol. I drink Cheerwine and Coke. Like those are my vices. It's soda. So
yeah,
it's
Nothing
what it
wrong
is.
with that.
It's good stuff.
No, there's not. There really isn't. All right. Well, that's going to do it. So on behalf of Andrew and Jen, this is Shawn saying thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next week for Rebel Moon 2.
This is Cheap Seat Reviews.